What's up, Internet? We are here today with a very special episode of whatever the hell this is. And this time, it's even more extra special, especially to me. Because today we're going to figure out what this timer means. Now, we're going to sit here and watch this timer countdown and discover what the hell is the secret of mana. But right now I can actually answer that question in its entirety. Secret of Mana is a 2018 re-release slash remake of a game that came out in like 1994. It's my favorite game of all time, so I'm heavily nostalgic about this. In fact, I've still got my boxed Super Nintendo copy up on my shelf right there. It's one of my most valuable possessions, to me personally anyway. Monetarily it's not that expensive, but it's very special to me. And because of that, I'm heavily invested in what this could be. As you can see, I've pre-ordered this game, which is not a practice I like to support, but again, because this game is so important to me, I decided, screw it, I'll do it this one time. And before this game launches, I just want to discuss some of the biggest issues it's going to have to go past in order for me to consider it a good remake. And I know there's a visual a visual increase, like a graphical update or whatever. Right now, I don't care about that, but having seen it, I'm not impressed. I think it looks kind of like a bad DS game, and I'm not a big graphics guy or anything, but I think it looks more dated than like the Super Nintendo stuff. And again, that might be nostalgia talking, but I think the Super Nintendo version looks kind of timeless, as a lot of Super Nintendo games do to me anyway. I also know they added voice acting, which I think is going to take away a lot from the game. As well, I'm inclined to think that means you can't name your characters here, which pisses me off a lot, but the things it's going to have to do in order to make it superior to the original Super Nintendo release is it's going to have to fix the three biggest issues the Super Nintendo game had. First of all, it's got to fix the AI pathfinding. The original Secret of Mana is notorious for its god-awful pathfinding. Like, you could stand on one specific staircase in the game, and your other two characters will just keep running around the staircase, not being able to figure out where to go. That's not ideal. They need to fix it. It's not the worst AI pathfinding on the Super Nintendo or anything. Go play Ruin Arm if you want to see the worst, but it's awful, and it absolutely needs to get fixed. The second thing Secret of Mana needs to do to be better than the Super Nintendo version is it needs to get combat right. Because Secret of Mana was a turn-based RPG wearing the skin of an action RPG. Because while it was kind of an action RPG, all of combat was based on weapon cooldowns. Like, you could swing your sword without it cooling down, but you're not going to do anything. I think they have to go like straight up A Link to the Past in terms of combat to get this game right. Because that didn't really work all that much. And that's ironic because it's that whole action RPG aspect that made me fall in love with Secret of Mana in the first place. Because before that, I hated RPGs as a kid because I couldn't stand that they were games that were literally, my numbers are better than your numbers, therefore I win. I wanted a game where my skill as an adventurer totally tops your numbers. But having higher numbers helps. So yeah, it's going to definitely have to fix the awkward combat. And finally, and arguably most importantly, it has to deal with everything that was removed from the original release. Now, this has got some history, so we might not make it before the timer runs down. But the original Secret of Mana was going to be a release for the Super Nintendo disk drive, the thing that was going to be the Sony PlayStation. Of course, that didn't happen, so to fit what was going to be a CD-based game onto a cart, they had to axe a lot of stuff. And to translate from Japanese to English, they had to axe even more. In fact, the last quarter of the game is literally go here, go here, go here, go here, go here, no story whatsoever. And no progression whatsoever. You don't get story for like the last quarter up until the final boss, so it's kind of horrible, and it really does need to be addressed. If it doesn't do that, I don't think this is going to be a superior remake or anything. It's just going to be a thing that exists, that has the name, and maybe the skin of my favorite game of all time. I don't know. I'm very excited, but also very nervous. But anyway, counting down in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, let's go. Cannot use this content. There we go. Installing add-ons. I don't want to install add-ons. I want to go. I will admit, I like the drawn animation. Like, that's a nice thing, but how's the actual game going to look? Oh, that's a nostalgic sound for me. Okay. Gotta say, it's not having the same audio punch the original had. Oh, there it is. That's what I want. Oh, this song right here is very special to me. It still sends chills up my spine every time I hear it. Although I don't like the extended, like, intro before the actual music starts up. That's not ideal, but I will admit, this looks gorgeous right here. But we're still not actually in-game, and I just want this opening to run a little bit to see if they extend the story a little bit, or if they cut to, like, actual in-game stuff as part of the teaser. Doesn't look like they do. So let's start. Yes, I'll use this slot. Audio language. I don't really care unless the dubbing is horrible, but what the hell, we'll use English. Oh, I can select my name. Badass. Okay. I always named my character because I've always been such a big Gundam fan. I always named my protagonist Hiro to address my name in the weird thing to deal with. Like, Persona does it, and it's just a little awkward.
The world prospered and humanity thrived thanks to a power known as mana.
I'm not sure how I feel about this cutscene style.
Humans soon sought to use mana to create the ultimate weapon, a floating battleship called the Mana Fortress. This greedy arrogance angered the gods.
There's the Mana Beast.
Unleashed vicious beasts into the world.
We'll proceed to not see him for the rest of the game.
Violent war between the Mana Beasts and the fortress engulfed the world in poison and fire until mana had all but disappeared. In humanity's bleakest hour, a hero wielding the Mana Sword appeared and destroyed the fortress. The world was left in shambles, and yet humanity persevered, and there was peace throughout the land.
Good news. Peace is good, maybe.
But as time passes, so history repeats.
I believe the original phrasing was, time is like a river, it flows, and history is set to repeat. That's the exact word. Now let's go fall off a waterfall, as every good hero does.
Hey! Guys! Wait! Up!
Okay, that's voice acting of some description.
If the Elder finds us here, we're done for.
Yeah. We're not supposed to be here. Everyone in the village knows about the ghost.
You really believe that old fib?
So our neighbor is played by Grumpy Valley Girl for some reason. Also, mouths don't move. That's a little weird. Can I just turn off voice acting, please? I think this is going to be more distracting than actually add anything to this game.
Let's go find it.
Nah, that's no fun. I'm going to go do something more fun, which is fall off a waterfall. Peace. Gotta say, definitely prefer the sprites, but I'm definitely from that time where It was definitely the Super Nintendo, so sprites are definitely a big deal.
Ouch.
Okay, that's really weird.
There's no way back
Like,
up.
top right of the screen, there's like a map. That is like the old school Secret of Mana, like a map. It's so weird. In fact, right now I'm like actually focusing on that weird sprite map than actually playing. There's the Mana Sword. Yeah, see, they're not going to address us by name. I know some games, if you go with like the default name, they will actually address you by name, so this one isn't. But some games do. Stuff like Fallout will do stuff like that. But
It's this way, but I'll never get through here without a weapon.
well, it's actually that the grass is in your way and you need a way to cut it down. It doesn't really say that you need a weapon or anything. But retranslations and whatnot. I gotta say, that character design is a little wonky.
Who are you?
And that lack of mouths, that's such a small thing, but it's so weird not to see mouths move in this day and age.
Too bright. What's with this light? Oh, a ghost.
It's also your father and the protagonist of the first Mana game. Spoilers. Sorry. I'm sorry. Spoilers.
Huh? What do you mean? Ugh, what's up with this sword?
Well, it definitely looks like a rusted sword, I'll give you that much.
The light's fading already. Oh, I have to get back to the village!
Okay, so voice acting is definitely not top tier. Okay, so, oh, we got the good old ring system and X. Oh, okay, down there, you can see next to my character there's like a bar, swing, percentage up. So it looks like they still have the percentage-based sort of turn. I'm not sure if we'll be able to functionally attack with a low percentage. Let's try it. Oh, maybe. Well, it kinda works, I guess. I mean, most of the time in the original, if you swung without like 100%, you just like whiff your attack entirely, but this isn't much better. So that's definitely one knock against it, I think. I mean, I think it works a little better, but I definitely think they need to get rid of that like percentage swinging crap. I mean, I get it's like a balance thing, like they can't just have you spamming your attack and, you know, victory. But to be fair, I can do that right now, and it'll work. It'll just take forever. Congratulations, I beat the enemy without letting him attack. It just took forever. I mean, on the bright side, I can still just hang back. And I think the actual, like, playable area is a little bit wider than it was on the Super Nintendo. Like you can see from the map there, it looks really cramped, whereas here I've actually got quite a bit of room to maneuver, so that seems like such a small thing, but at least here, because they might have changed it for everywhere else, but if that's a standard, that means that dodging attacks should be a lot easier, because you've just got a lot more real estate that's not occupied by enemy or like attack boxes. Boop. Can I charge up my attack? I don't think so, not yet. It does seem like avoiding them is a little bit easier, although I say that and I get attacked from being like a mile away somehow, so the hitboxes are a little special. Can I charge my weapon now? Yes, I can.
Take that!
Although this leads to a question. The original Secret of Mana had a glitch in it. I wonder if they kept it, where if you charged a weapon and then swapped without losing your charge, you could like charge it to negative levels, which would cause you to do like millions of damage. I wonder if they fixed that. I'm genuinely curious. Which leads me to also question if other glitches in this game remain. Because there were a lot of them, and not all of them were negative. There were quite a few really good ones, like quite famously getting a sword upgrade that didn't technically exist in the game through an exploit. And it would actually like make the final boss a little bit easier, not because like your weapon was functionally stronger or anything, but it skipped doing a bunch of like dumb minutia stuff that was exclusive to the final boss. But I would very much like to turn that voice acting off if I can. Is there a, I guess there isn't, no. Okay. I was thinking I could maybe open up like a sound options or something. Ooh. This probably wouldn't affect anyone else, but this song happens to be like one of my favorite songs in the game next to the opening. This is just plingy and bad to listen to.
You idiots!
Yes, not supposed to wander near the steep falls because there's something there we're not supposed to find. Here's a surprise, it's the sword I found. And we've accidentally kind of doomed our entire village because we're horrible people. Also, he's supposed to be punching us right now. There's no animation for that. Now, to be fair, there wasn't on the Super Nintendo either, but they did sort of ram him into your character a little, so it looked a little bit more believable, like he was getting physical with you, whereas here it's a little awkward. There's Gemma, the knight who looks suspiciously like the ghost of your father.
Help! I'm a monster!
Ooh, okay. I will admit, the perspective on the mantis ant here looks a little bit awkward. Yeah, the combat is definitely about as bad as the original always had. And welcome to another problem Secret Mana had that you had to deal with for about maybe 5% or 5%, 1/5 of the game. It's enemies can spam magic, and until you get magic, you can't do the same. But like when you do get magic, you can spam it. But until you get to that point, you basically just have to deal with enemies potentially just spamming magic forever and instant killing you. But yeah, the perspective on the mantis ant just looks weird because it takes into account 3D, but you don't really see its face because it's just craning down at you because it's looking at the protagonist and not like the screen. So it just kind of comes across a bit weird, I guess. I'm not sure if that was supposed to do damage or not. Oh hey, Tro achievements. Don't care! They kept that sound effect. I like that. And then they remixed the other half of that. Weird. I think that is a holdover sound effect from the Super Nintendo, actually.
I'll pull you up.
Stay back! I didn't...
Now, I will say, this is a good rendition of this song.
You seem to be in possession of the real mana sword. This is troubling.
Actually, right now, it's the rusty sword, mate.
Legend says the sword can only be retrieved by a knight when the world is in peril. You are far too young for such a responsibility. Something must be wrong with the mana sword.
And yet, here I am.
No,
That was a special face.
the sword has lost its power. It must be restored.
That's not preventing you from taking
Only
it.
the one who pulled it free can do that.
Then...
I'd like to know the logic behind that.
Visit Sage Luca in the Water Palace. The sage has protected these lands for over 200 years. You would do well to listen to her advice.
I will say, as much as I don't really care for this visual style or the fact that
I'll be
it seems like a lot of corners have been cut visually, they did get the bright colors right. That's a big deal, because the Super Nintendo game itself was really bright. And then we get some sad news.
Elder, we can't.
Yeah, they don't like that we took the sword. So we're getting kicked out of Potos.
Get out!
Also, after we saved all these people, by the way, they want us out. So much for the heroic victory music. Found 50 GP. Oh, that's kind of neat. Let's go back down there for a sec. This is a picture of the protagonist from Adventures of Men on the PS Vita, which would be the knight who gave us the sword. Or the ghost knight, or whatever. So that's a nice little tie-in, I guess. Oh, that's pretty music.
Everything you need?
Yes. I could go buy some, like, equipment or something, but we're not going to need it.
You have been banished from Potos.
Oh, I love that song. Okay. Also, different song than would be playing on the Super... Now, very early on in Secret of Mana, you're actually given a couple choices. They're largely inconsequential, but right now we could go this way, take a free cannon ride and skip some stuff, but we're going to go this way because extra experience, and also it lets us get our second party member quicker. These flowers were a complete pain in the ass to deal with on the Super Nintendo. They actually seem kind of nice in this one. Because in the Super Nintendo version, they kind of blocked your path entirely, and they would kind of just get like a free sucker punch on you if you tried to fight back. So, I mean, that makes it functionally a little bit better anyway. Stab. Stab. Well, gameplay-wise, it's very similar to how it was on the Super Nintendo. Whether or not that's good or not is up for debate, though. Okay. There's Dillik.
Pandora has sent us to fight.
And he goes this way to go fight a witch, gets trapped in the witch's forest, and we gotta go rescue him later, kinda. Whoa, I got some weird, like, vertigo climbing those stairs. I remember this was a really impressively animated place in the Super Nintendo version. And this version doesn't look like it's too much of a slouch either. I think, visually, whoa. It's got, like, a nice sense of depth here. I'll give it that. The water looks quite nice, too. Although those instantly appearing stairs are a bit jarring. There's Sage Luca.
Where's Luke? Hey.
Actually, here.
Mind your manners. It's nice to see you again, Sage Luca.
You're...
Wait, you mean this little girl is 200 years old?
She looks older than you, dude.
Oh, so you're the one who found the mana sword. Fascinating.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. Let me go.
Luca, monsters have started.
You underestimate my intelligence.
It seems if you button mash, like, through conversations or to start conversations, the animation kind of stutters a little bit. Like, it just freaks out a little and doesn't quite know what it needs to do. That's such a small thing, though.
Of mana in this area to shift. Beasts are now rampaging. Evil in the world is working to seal away the power of the mana sword forever by defeating monsters and obtaining their orbs. You can reforge and restore the sword's mana power. It looks like your sword regained some power from vanquishing them. There are more hidden orbs with the mana power.
And I should touch that seed up there,
This is no fairy tale.
The Empire,
which will help unlock more power for magic, I believe.
Strange reports come.
I do not know.
Well, that's another thing this game should be able to do that probably won't, but if it could take away all the stupid amounts of grinding for magic, that would be good.
Head for the cave in Gaia.
Because I remember if you want to get like the higher levels of magic,
Powerful. Your
you'd have to like grind for hours on end. It was just terrible. And the thing is, like, every magic starts at level 1.
What frightens you so? You wield the legendary mana sword. It used the last of its
What power?
The ancients used their war machine, It's not a fairy tale like you were told as the battle raged and the world reached its end. The few who remained rebuilt the world. If the Empire restores you must...
So, where...
You must become...
You're the hero, you need to go save the world. Okay.
Come.
And that should allow us to upgrade our weapons to like level 1 or something if we have an orb. Or it makes our magic like level 1 or something, but we don't get magic for a while yet. We're gonna have to deal with a lot of bosses.
Now no matter where you are, you found one of the... I worry about you out in the world with...
So yes, we have to go find a bunch of palaces to make our weapons and magic stronger and to reunite the world with the power of mana.
Like to save the game.
Yes, I'll save. Now that actually does kind of bring me back to one of my biggest issues, which is
To reach Gaia's
the hunting of the various palaces is kind of where, like, literally all the story kind of disappeared. Because, like, the latter half of them is just go here, go here, go here, good. The guy you've been following, he's actually here, talk to him. Let's see, okay, we got a spear. I'm just gonna test real quick if this game still has the feature I mentioned. So I should be able to charge up my weapon. That's level 1. Swap to that. I think I did that wrong. Let's try again. I don't think we'll... I don't think it'll work. I think this would be something that people are pretty cognizant about, so they'd probably avoid keeping it. Yeah, no. So normally, in the original Secret of Mana, if you swap to a weapon that has like a lower charge rate than your current weapon's charge rate, you'd basically go into a negative value, which means you do stupid amounts of damage. Dillic's gone. Let's go to Pandora. This is another song I'm really fond of. Like, I like the entire soundtrack to Secret of Mana, so changing anything about it makes me a little bit nervous, and I don't know, I kind of prefer the original Super Nintendo version over this, honestly. It's not bad or anything, it's just personal preference, but definitely some songs seem like they're not quite as good as their original counterparts. But of course, I'm also very invested in the original. Stab. Stab. Yeah, combat, it's very much still the original Secret of Mana. Mostly for ill. There's very little good in that, but that's definitely one of the biggest knocks against it right now. I mean, you can expect a graphical change, you can expect audio remixes, but if they don't fix, like, the actual functional problems the game has, that's when there's an issue, and so far we're starting to have some issues. It still plays about as well as the original, but if the upgrade is literally going to be the same as the original, I'd really just go play the original. Some candy. Stab. This guy'll shoot you up there if you let him. But we were already up there, it's really just a shortcut back, and there are better ways to get a shortcut back up there if you really need to, and I don't think over the course of all of Secret of Mana do you ever need to backtrack up there. So it's kind of weird they make you do that. I guess it would be literally just for the sake of, like, respawning all the enemies and grinding. Boop. And there should be a special event that'll happen, I think, in the next screen, because we took this route. So the second route we could have taken, like I said, taken a cannon. The preferred mode of transportation in the Mana games, of course. But so far, I'm not wildly impressed. Huh. That's weird. they cut out a scene. That's interesting. Unless I didn't trigger it properly, because there's normally a scene where you get captured by monsters and someone comes to rescue you. And that person turns out to be like your second party member. And that's one of the like 3 or 4 ways the opening can go, because the opening of this game is, or at least the original, was kind of open-ended, because there was a bunch of different choices as to what you could do to change how events would play out. But one of them seems to be missing, which is weird. I'm pretty sure I did everything that needed to be done in order to trigger it. But we should still be able to get our second party member. That would be her.
My dad is infuriating. I'm in charge of my life, not him. Out of my way!
Okay, so again, I'm not sure if that second possible route was removed or whatever. Like, I'm pretty sure I did everything I needed to make it happen, but because that didn't happen, she's gonna go chase after Dillick, who's hiding out in the witches' forest, and she's gonna get jumped by werewolves, and we could go rescue her, but at our level that's not ideal. So we're gonna go after our other character, who would be in the Gaia's Navel cave, and I think we'll probably stop around that point, I think, because I kind of get a feeling this is probably not the remake I want it to be. I don't see myself hating this game, but if we compare it to the original, I'm impressed. Yeah, I think this rendition of this song is kind of inferior to the original. It just sounds kind of plingy, and that's comparing it to a Super Nintendo game right now. Oh, to be fair, the Super Nintendo game was quite often thought to be one of the better soundtracks on the entire system. So if you want to remake that, you have to be real careful, and this one, in terms of audio, seems kind of hit or miss. The visuals are bright and colorful, which is nice, but the character models, they don't look quite like I think they should. I think the voice acting, I think any voice acting would probably be a negative for someone who played this game. Mainly because we all have like our own understanding of what these characters should sound like, of course. Sort of like if you were to read a book and then that book gets turned into a movie and suddenly like the characters don't look how you think they do because they're limited to what the actor can do. But so far it seems kind of like a by-the-numbers remake more than anything, which, as someone who's very, very close to the original game, that ain't gonna cut it, honestly. But I don't know, it seems okay, but like it's just okay, and when you go with a beloved classic, you're really got to pull out all the stops, or you're really just gonna get a bunch of ire for it, and this just seems kind of by the numbers average. Like they just sat down in a boardroom, said, okay, we need to remake this game, so let's do that, but no one really thought remaking means to fix what was wrong with it. And you know, Secret of Mana was not a perfect game. It might be my favorite game of all time, but it really wasn't even all that much of a good game if you really look at its mechanics and its issues and how much of it was removed, which again they might have thrown in the story, but again we're not going to really see that until we get to like 60-70% of the way through the game, which I'm not going to sit here in one session and do. My recording device has trouble recording audio along with video. It's probably stuttered a bunch of times, and I apologize for that, but yeah, I'm just not going to be able to do that because I can't do that with my equipment. But as it stands, the things that this game needed to fix were pathfinding, which we can't really find until we get another AI, which our second character did not seem to want to join us, so that's out of the question right now. And really fixing the combat, which they absolutely did not do. I think they may have made it a little bit more lenient, but that would be marginal at best. It's still just as awkward as it's always been. And they've taken out some fun glitches, so I'm not happy about that either. But, yeah, so far this seems, at best, kind of paint by the numbers, at worst, largely inferior to the original. But again, take that for a grain of salt. I'm very much someone who's invested in the original. I've definitely got a lot of nostalgia, and to be fair, going into this, I was prepared to be disappointed, and it hasn't disappointed me completely. It's playable, it's just, if you want to remake something, you know, remake it. Don't just give it a fancy coat of paint, which is basically what this game seems to be doing. Which, you know, you can do in this day and age, but it's not going to win you many fans. And honestly, it makes me more worried than anything else about other remakes in the future, because if people are going to basically just half-ass remakes just because we'll sell it just based on nostalgia alone, well, yeah, you will, but you're going to hurt your fan base overall. Like me, lose faith in the entire idea of just remaking the classics. But, you know, as Jay Sherman once said, if it's a remake to a classic, go watch the classic. Or in this case, go play the classic, which I think is kind of the situation. If you want to go play Secret of Mana, you can. It's on the Super Nintendo. It's on the SNES Classic if you can get a hold of one. It was downloadable on the Wii, which probably means you can still get it on the Wii U. I'm not sure if online still works on that thing, but you can get it on the iOS for like $5. Now, granted, that's not great because iOS games are kind of horrible, especially when they're remakes of proper games, but ouch. But that's another thing you could do, and they did remix that one a little bit, but it still looks pretty true to the original game. They just changed the sprites ever so much, and, you know, it didn't look bad. It was murder on my iPhone battery, but, you know, it wasn't a horrible remake. Even though, like this, it was basically just a by-the-numbers remake. I don't think they were really billing it as anything else. Whereas this feels like they were trying to sort of bill it as its own experience comparatively to the original. Like, yes, it's a remake, but it's going to, like, completely change how you looked at the original, and it's going to be like the thing that replaces the original. And unless you genuinely have no way of playing the original Secret of Mana, I don't think this is going to be the case. I mean, if you can't, then, I mean, I guess you could play this, but there's a million and one ways you could go play Secret of Mana right now, and honestly, I'm inclined to just go do that. I've got this Super Nintendo card on my shelf. I think after this, I'm going to go do that. But Secret of Mana is, I don't want to necessarily say a good game, because it had a boatload of issues, and this remake, at least from what I've been able to play in this short period of time, does not really seem to fix any of them. And for a remake in this day and age, that's kind of unacceptable, I think. And sure, you do kind of run into the problem, if you change stuff, people are going to hate you for, you know, changing what didn't need to be fixed, but there was a lot here that absolutely did need to be fixed, and so far, they have not addressed any of that. They've just given it a fancy coat of paint, gave it voice acting that was completely unnecessary, and I think takes away from the experience, and really just gave you the same game over. In fact, I've said this when I first saw it, I'm more inclined to just watch the mini-map up in the corner because that game I like. This one, I'm just kind of, sort of, ambivalent to. But welcome to Guy's Naval, the place where you'd get your second or third, depending on how events played out, character. Of course, there's like 2 or 3 branching paths early on. And, I think we're going to call it here because this is still very much the same game. Yep, the slimes still regenerate. And as we murder this goblin by doing absolutely nothing to it, I'll see you next time. Peace out, Internet.